The Tigers are hot. The New York Yankees have found themselves their game changer, and it's Monday. We have a brand new top 10 Major League Baseball power rankings. And when I tell you there's a lot of movement and even a potential change at the number one spot, I mean it. There is a lot of movement. Fun week of baseball this week. We have MLB at Field of Dreams coming up. Baseball is back. It hasn't been there in a couple years. Now it's going back to the Field of Dreams site in Iowa, the movie site, and there will be the Twins and there will be the Phillies. We'll talk about that a little bit later because there is a lot of exciting stuff happening this year at the Field of Dreams. But the Tigers are hot, my friends. We got to talk about the Detroit Tigers. They have now passed the Twins and the Guardians in the AL Central. Tigers are hot, baby. They're 3.5 games out of first place behind the Chicago White Sox. Just 3.5 games and now sit solely in second place. And they are just one game back of a playoff spot altogether in the AL wildcard race. And it's not just because the AL Central is a weaker division and the American League is a weaker league. It's because the Detroit Tigers have genuinely been one of the best teams by a lot of metrics, certainly since the start of June. Since the start of June, the Detroit Tigers have a plus 126 run differential, which leads all of Major League Baseball. Plus 87 run differential all year long, which leads the American League. So it's kind of crazy when you look at it, the fact that they have the leading American League run differential, yet they're still a sub 500 team as we sit right now. I don't envision that lasting very long because the Tigers are 36-22 since the start of June. That's the fourth best record in all of Major League Baseball, the second best record in all of the American League since the start of June, which now is almost 2.5 months. They have 5.45 runs scored per game, which is third in all of Major League Baseball. A 2.81 starting pitcher ERA, which leads all Major League Baseball. And the bullpen, which I would have soon assumed has been the Achilles heel, actually has a 3.16 ERA, which is fourth best in all of Major League Baseball since the start of June. The Tigers are hot. They do this seemingly every year. They're an absolute roller coaster in either direction, and you just need to time it correctly. Last year, heading into the playoffs, they were heading straight down, and right now, they are heading straight up in a weaker division and a weaker league. So I'll go out on a limb here. I don't even know how much of a limb it is. I think the Detroit Tigers are going to win the American League Central. I really do. I think the Tigers are going to win the Central. Why? Well, a couple reasons. Troy Melton. We got to talk about Troy Melton. This guy is an absolute star. And most people watching or listening might not even know the name Troy Melton. But when I say this, you're going to be shocked. Troy Melton has been the best pitcher in Major League Baseball this year. In terms of the lowest ERA in Major League Baseball with a minimum of 80 innings, he has a 1.46 ERA. That leads Jacob Mizorowski in second, Shohei Ohtani in third, Chris Sale in fourth, Cam Schlittler in fifth, and Dylan Cease in sixth. Troy Melton leads all of those. He's an absolute stud. Jackson Jobe is now back in the rotation. In his first start against the Giants, he was throwing 100 with nasty, like a splitter or changeup or whatever he throws. It was nasty. He looked good. Dylan Dingler behind the plate. It's time we have a conversation about Dylan Dingler. And that conversation I want to have is AL MVP. And I'm not sitting here saying right now that Dylan Dingler should be the MVP over Yordan Alvarez. But what I am saying is we need to have much more of a conversation about it because catchers, I was explaining this all last year, how valuable catchers are and just how much we undervalue them in terms of, I think when it comes to MVP, we look at offensive numbers and then if they're close, we go, okay, what position are they playing? That's not how it should be. A catcher is leading a pitching staff, leading a defense, while also putting up the numbers defensively or offensively that Dylan Dingler is putting up. He needs to be in the AL MVP conversation. Again, not saying he should be leading right now over Yordan Alvarez, but it should be much closer than it is. And if you look on FanDuel Sportsbook, Yordan's a strong favorite to win it. And Dylan Dingler is in fourth, tied with Ben Rice at plus 4,500. That just shouldn't. That's just not how that should be playing out right now. Dylan Dingler is a stud. Framber. So I look at this team right now, and the way they are playing. Do I believe they are? Let me get to. Man, in the American League, I really do believe anybody can get to the World Series. I truly do believe that. But. So, you look at this rotation. Troy Melton, Framber Valdez, Jackson Jobe, that plays. That plays in the playoffs. That plays to get to the playoffs. So, the Detroit Tigers are hot. They are rolling right now. They're 3.5 back in the AL Central and just one game out of a wild card spot right now as we sit. And with being, I can't say the hottest team in the American League because that belongs to the Boston Red Sox, but being one of the hottest teams in the American League in all of baseball, I truly believe the Tigers are going to win the American League Central. Tigers are hot, baby. The Tigers are hot. Let's talk about the Yankees. The New York Yankees have found their game changer. And his name is not Aaron Judge coming back off the IL. It's not Giancarlo Stanton coming back. His name is George Lombard Jr., and he is an absolute stud. In fact, I'll go one further. I don't say this lightly. I think George Lombard Jr. is a star. I think he is a superstar in the making. And I promise you, I don't say that lightly. I don't often go out on a limb and say, on social media, people love to like bookmark posts. And when Anthony Volpe got sent down and Lombard Jr. came up, so many posts came about from people saying, Anthony Volpe, look how good he's going to be. And I get it. And I love when social media is a nasty place. You say something and you're trying to be nice about a player and it doesn't work out. People are going to just jump at you and try and bring you down. I went out on a limb and I said, I know how social media works. I truly believe George Lombard Jr. is going to be a star. In 4 games played in the big leagues, he has a +3 defensive runs saved already in his first 4 games. He is a stud defensively. He's 98th percentile in speed. While being 6'2", that's not short. He's a little over shortstop average height. So he's a taller guy at 98th percentile in speed. He absolutely flies. And again, short, small sample size, but 20 plate appearances in the big leagues. He's already got 2 homers, a .294 average, an OPS over 1,000. I love his swing. I love how hard he plays the game, how fast he is, his defense. All of the tools are there. And another thing for me, I watched his first MLB game. His parents were in the stands talking about him. They were being interviewed, and they just talked about how good of a kid he is and how important that is for him to just be a good person above all else. And they were sitting there and super emotional when he got his first home run, and just, man, it's just hard to not root for him. And I've watched him his first few games, and his makeup, his ability, his physical attributes, I truly believe that George Lombard Jr. is going to be a game changer for the New York Yankees this year. The American League is weaker. I think if the New York Yankees get to the World Series, he's going to have a big part in it. Aaron Judge is going to come back. Giancarlo Stanton's going to come back. We know those guys. We know them. They've been on the New York Yankees the last many years when it doesn't work out for them. They don't get to where they want to be. They've had a hole at shortstop. And I don't want to talk about George Lombard Jr. while talking negatively about anybody else that has been in the organization. But they have had a hole at shortstop that has hurt them. Not just one player. They just can't figure it out. And I think he's the staple shortstop of the future. George Lombard Jr. I'm sitting here on August 10th of 2026 saying George Lombard Jr. is the staple star shortstop of the future that will be there for a long time to come for the New York Yankees. I really do believe he is the piece that they have been looking for at shortstop and just haven't been able to find since Derek Jeter. I think it's George Lombard Jr., and I haven't said that about anybody else. I truly believe that. He's got every tool you could want. I love watching him play. He's a stud of a human, a stud of a player, and I can't wait to see what he does for the New York Yankees for a long time to come. And he's the guy they needed. I think this is the game changer for them. And now they're going to start getting healthier with Judge, Stanton, some guys coming back. And they've treaded water just fine since they haven't been great. They haven't been terrible. They're going to be a playoff team. Can they get back and win the division? Time will tell. I think they're 5.5 games out in the AL East. We'll see. Still plenty of time left if these guys come back and get healthy. But they're a playoff team. And this team's going to be dangerous in the playoffs, for sure. Tigers are hot. George Lombard Jr. is a star. And it's Monday, which means we have a new and improved Major League Baseball Power Rankings. And when I say improved and new and a lot of change, I mean it. We have some shifts in the top 5. And for the first time in months, there is a new number 1 team in the Major League Baseball Power Rankings. Let's get to it. And we're going to start, as we do every week, at number 10. And at number 10, staying the same as they were last week, is going to be the Philadelphia Phillies. The Philadelphia Phillies are holding down a wild card spot, but it's by the skin of their teeth. They are 63-56. Just one game up on the Padres for that final wild card spot. They won 3 of 4 games versus the Washington Nationals on the week, but then lost 2 of 3 against the Toronto Blue Jays. So still holding down that final spot, but I'm going to keep them put. But there were some teams knocking on the door of the power rankings that we'll talk about at the end of this. But at number 9, new to the power rankings this week, is going to be the Arizona Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks are 63-56, tied with the Phillies for the final wild card spot. They split with the San Diego Padres early in the week, and then they won 2 of 3 against the Los Angeles Dodgers, which to me, the Dodgers hadn't been playing great, but it's still a huge series win against the most talented team in the game of baseball. So the Dodgers, or the Diamondbacks, are going to slide into the power rankings at number 9 as they sit in the final, tied for the final wild card spot. At number 8, we're going to go with the Chicago White Sox. The White Sox are staying the same this week. They're still leading the American League Central, and they're 61-56. 3.5 games up on the Detroit Tigers, who are knocking on the door. They were swept by the Boston Red Sox, and then over the weekend, they won a huge series against the Cleveland Guardians. Huge American League Central series against the Guardians. White Sox won that. So even though they got swept early in the week, I kept them the same because of that big series win over the weekend. Moving on to number 7. Also staying the same is going to be the Boston Red Sox. So this one's going to get a lot of a conversation here. Why are they staying the same? They're the hottest team in baseball for the last couple of months. They've been fantastic. They won 32 games in their first 78 games of the year. They've now won 32 games in their last 37 games. Think of that. It took 78 games for them to win 32 games, and now in their last 37, they had won 32, at least until this weekend. I am keeping the Red Sox the same because they're in the second wild card spot, looking good there. They're 5.5 games up they're 5.5 games in a playoff spot currently, 1.5 games back of the New York Yankees, who have the top wild card spot, and they were rolling, but really bad series loss over the weekend. Vibes were high. The Athletics come into town, who have been the worst, if not, they are one of the worst, if not the worst, in the last couple of months, tied with the Rockies down there. The Athletics have been terrible. They're missing their best player in Nick Kurtz, and Shea Langeliers is dealing with injuries. They're not a good team right now. And they come into town, and the Red Sox lose that series while vibes are so high. So I kept them the same this week instead of bumping them up. And I kept them the same at number 7. Let's move on to number 6. At number 6 is going to be the New York Yankees, who are down 1 spot this week. The Yankees are 66-52. They have the top wild card spot. They're 5.5 games back of the Tampa Bay Rays in the American League East. They lost the series to the St. Louis Cardinals and then beat the Atlanta Braves. So I did knock them down. A good week. Beating the Braves is a good weekend series. After a loss to the Cardinals, though, them beating the Braves and what the Chicago Cubs did, I bumped the Yankees down. Because at number 5, Flip-flopping with the Yankees is going to be the Chicago Cubs. The Cubs are up one spot, and their week, they swept the Los Angeles Dodgers and beat the Kansas City Royals on the week. What a fantastic week for the Cubs. The Cubs' vibes are high. Vibes are high on the north side with the Chicago Cubs. The Dodgers come into town. You sweep them out of town. You got your new pitchers on the bump. They look fantastic. They're 69-50. They are 5.5 games back of the Milwaukee Brewers in the National League Central, but they are holding down the top wild card spot in the National League, and they look so, so good. What a fantastic week for the Cubs, sweeping the Dodgers at home. Vibes are high at Wrigley, so I bumped them up over the Yankees, even though, this will be another conversation, even though the Yankees beat them not too long ago, a week or so ago, it was time to flip-flop these two back again, just because they dominated the Dodgers. The Yankees lose to the Dodgers. You can play that game all year long when it comes to power rankings. It was in the here and now, when the Yankees had just beaten the Cubs, I flip-flopped them and I jumped the Yankees over the Cubs. It's a little too removed now after the Cubbies sweeping the Dodgers and playing really good baseball. The Yankees losing to the Cardinals, not been playing great lately. The Cardinals, not the Yankees. I flip-flopped them. So the Cubs are at 5. And starting the top 5. Let's move on to number 4. Number 4 is going to be the Tampa Bay Rays, winners of 6 games in a row. The Rays just don't go away. They never go anywhere. I'm going to keep them the same as they were last week, but winners of 6 in a row, 71-46, 5.5 games up in the American League East, and they swept both the Colorado Rockies and the Seattle Mariners on the week. That's a pretty good week. Perfect, might I add. But they are going to stay the same just because cracking the top 3 is going to be tough right now. And at number 3, down 2 spots from number 1 to number 3 is going to be the Los Angeles Dodgers. The Dodgers are going through it right now. They're struggling. They are 70-48. They have lost 5 of their last 6 games. They lost 5 of 6 on the week that just happened. They're 3-10 in their last 13, and they had lost 7 in a row heading into this weekend. It's been a bad stretch for the Dodgers, whether it's pitching, whether it's offense, whether it's blowing saves with Edwin Diaz in the back end of games. They've been finding different ways to lose over the last week. And do I think they are the most talented team in baseball? I do. But do I think they're deserving of the top spot in Major League Baseball right now? I do not. And I couldn't just slide them down 1. I slid them down 2 to number 3 this week because these other 2 teams are deserving of the top 2 spots. Let's move on to number 2. At number 2 is going to be the Atlanta Braves. Up 1 spot, 71-47, the second best record in the National League. Goes to the Braves. They're winners of 8 of their last 10. They're 8.5 games up in the National League East. They swept Miami, and then they did lose 2 of 3 to the New York Yankees. But here's the thing with the Braves. They've just been flying under the radar. And I don't know if it's because the start to the year, they were the best team in baseball, and then they hit a little bit of a skid, and then they started dealing with some injuries, and then they started getting some bad pitcher news in terms of injuries. But then they've been playing great again. And I think because of the underwhelming trade deadline, we're just not talking about the Braves enough. The Braves have Ronald Acuna Jr. has come back and he's healthy. Chris Sale is a certified bona fide ace. They have some pitchers coming back and working their way back, and I think Spencer Schwellenbach is going to be back at some point. Erston Waldrop, hopefully he can get back to, he's dealt with some injuries, hadn't been great this year. Hopefully he can get back to what he was. But you have some guys, you have some rotation arms. They just need to come back and get healthy. I think Spencer Strider is going to be done for the year. So look, played great to start the year. Best team in baseball. Then they hit a skid. Then they started dealing with injuries. Then an underwhelming trade deadline. And I just don't think we're talking about them enough now. I think we're underappreciating what the Atlanta Braves are. And that is they have the second best record in the National League ahead of the Dodgers. If the season ended right now, the Dodgers would have to play in a wild card series because they're the third best division winner, the third best record for a division winner in the National League. Not where you want to be, for sure. Braves are up one spot to number 2. But in the number 1 spot, new, and for the first time in 2026, and absolutely deserving of the top spot in the Major League Baseball Power Rankings with the best record in the game of baseball, is the Milwaukee Brewers. The Brewers are 77-44 this week. Won 3 of 4 against the Pittsburgh Pirates, and then won 2 of 3 against the Minnesota Twins. Jacob Misiorowski reached 200 strikeouts in just 129 and a third innings. That is the second fastest in a season to 200 strikeouts in MLB history. Who's number 1, you ask? Glad you asked. Spencer Strider in 2023 reached 200 strikeouts in just 123 in a third inning, so 6 innings faster. Jacob Misiorowski, stud. Kyle Harrison looks back to being healthy and really good on the mound. The rotation is great. The offense has been good even without Christian Yelich hitting much. The Milwaukee Brewers are absolutely deserving of the top spot, and they are a fantastic team and a fantastic organization. I do have my doubts when it comes to October, and I've talked about this. I have my concerns about the Brewers and how good they can be matched up against the juggernauts in October, just because I think they are built to win over 162. I worry about the firepower in October. But what are you going to do? Right now, I don't think they did enough at the trade deadline. I think if they had gone and gotten a Tarek Skubal, I would have had a totally different read on this, or a totally different feeling about where the Brewers are right now. But I think the Brewers are the best regular season team in baseball, and they struggle to win in October. But we will see, because they will absolutely be they will absolutely be playing in October. So we will see. But they are the number 1 spot this week, and they are absolutely deserving of the top spot in the Major League Baseball Power Rankings. So 10 through 1, that leaves us with the Phillies at 10, then the Diamondbacks, White Sox, Red Sox, and Yankees at 6, and a top 5 of the Cubs, Rays, Dodgers, down to number 3, Braves, and then the Brewers holding down the top spot. Just outside of the top 10 this week, San Diego Padres, who have been playing better and knocking on the door of number 10. They're 1 game back of a playoff spot. They've been playing really well. They added some good pieces at the trade deadline, Robbie Ray and Casey Mize, who haven't exactly been firing yet. They've each had 1 start. Casey Mize, his worst start of the year. Robbie Ray looked okay. But I do still like those additions for them and think they will help them down the stretch. But the National League is a juggernaut. So can they get in? We will see. But they're knocking on the door of the top 10. And also the Detroit Tigers. The Detroit Tigers are hot. They are here. They are 3.5 back in the Central. They're 1 game back of a playoff spot. They've been one of the hottest teams in Major League Baseball since the start of June. People would be shocked to learn they have the best run differential in all of the American League. And since the start of June, the best run differential in all of Major League Baseball. But I didn't yet pull the trigger on that top 10 spot. They're so streaky. And I love the Tigers. Tigers are hot. They're so streaky. I just want to see one more week how they do, if they can creep into a playoff spot, if they keep playing. They don't need to be in a playoff spot to get in the top 10. But I do want to see them over 500. If they're over 500 after this next week, I have a pretty good feeling they'll be in that top 10. But we will see. Padres, Tigers, just outside of the top 10. Milwaukee Brewers, the new number 1 team in Major League Baseball. And that is this week's top 10 Major League Baseball Power Rankings. It's Field of Dreams week. Major League Baseball is heading back to the Field of Dreams, and I can't wait. It's MLB Field of Dreams week. Why should you care? Let me tell you why you care. It's been a couple years since they've been back. Players walking out of the corn never gets old. You know, it happened the first time Kevin Costner came out of the corn, and then you have the Yankees and White Sox and Aaron Judge walking out, and it was like, this is awesome. Well, the second time it was awesome. Seeing players walk out of the cornfield in right center field and walk onto the field, it doesn't get old. And we're going to get that again. We got the Phillies and we have the Twins. This has real playoff implications. The Phillies grasping by thin air onto that final playoff spot. The Twins trying to get in a playoff spot. We have 28 Hall of Famers will be there. 28 Hall of Famers from Major League Baseball will be at the Field of Dreams. And I can't say for sure. I do know 28 will be there. I can't say for sure, but I got a feeling those guys are going to come walking out of the corn. And how awesome is that going to be? It's going to be a spectacle. It always is. It's on Netflix. They do a good job. It's always fun. It's always cinema. Netflix so far has learned a lot, I would imagine, about shooting baseball and how to incorporate baseball into their world because they're so good with cinema and shows and movies. They combine the two really well. And having the MLB game at Field of Dreams, I think, is the perfect combination for Netflix. I think it's going to be awesome. I will be there. I'm heading there Wednesday. I will be there all day Thursday, shooting so many different pieces of content, and I'll be walking through the corn, and I'll show you the stadium, and it's going to be a lot of fun, and I will be there, and I will try and bring it to you all as best as I possibly can. But that game is on Thursday, and it's between the Phillies and the Twins. A lot of playoff implications in that game as well, so it does mean something, but it will be awesome. And again, it's at the Field of Dreams movie site location. There is a movie site field, obviously, where they shot the movie. They built a stadium just about, I don't know distance-wise, but like just a few blocks through the corn to the left center field of the movie site. Just walk through that cornfield, just, I don't know, a few hundred feet, and you're going to walk out and you're going to hit a Major League Baseball stadium. And it's really, really cool. And that is this week. That is Thursday, Phillies Twins, and I can't wait. I'm heading there Wednesday, but we still have a big week ahead. We will have This Week in Shohei Ohtani news. Again, I leave Wednesday, so that always comes out on Thursday. I'm going to try and record that Wednesday, get it out Thursday. We'll see the timing on This Week in Shohei Ohtani news, but I'll try and keep it the same, which is Thursday at 3 o'clock Pacific, 6 o'clock Eastern. And then we will have Saturday with Smoltz, as we do every single week. John Smoltz joins the show. That will be Saturday. Fun week. A lot of changes in the power rankings. Tigers are hot. George Lombard Jr. is a star, and we have the Field of Dreams. This baseball is rolling. The playoff schedule just came out. Major League Baseball just released the playoff schedule. It starts at the very, very end of September, and a potential Game 7 of the World Series would be on Halloween, October 31st. Baseball's rolling. It's crunch time. We are getting close, about a month and a half left of the season, and we'll bring it to you as we always do on Flippin' Bats, because this is the best baseball community that is out there. I love you guys. I appreciate every single one of you, whether this is your first show listening or watching, or whether it is your millionth show. I haven't done a million, but I've done a lot. Please make sure you're watching on YouTube. I would appreciate you watching there. Leave a comment. I always hop back in the comments. I have a really fun time with you guys on YouTube. So leave a comment, like the video, subscribe, but I will hop in the comments and continue the conversation of the episode there, which I always really enjoy doing. But if you're just listening, Apple, Spotify, wherever, hit a follow button there. Leave 5-star review, and follow us on social media at Flippin' Bats Pod everywhere, where a lot of clips, fun clips from the show and different things come out. I appreciate you all. I love you guys. What a fun show. Until This Week in Shohei Ohtani news, remember, find your bat and flip it. Peace.